Hi, I'm Kenneth. I learned something new this week.
This week, I learned about how we can volunteer for disaster response efforts of our local governments, and I am sharing it with you.
Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful transformation. We're going to look at exactly how you go from being a well-meaning bystander into a field-ready, fully accredited community disaster responder. Let's get right into it, because honestly, when a crisis hits, a community's own strength is absolutely its best defense. Now, I want you to picture this. Imagine standing in the knee-deep mud of Tacloban right after a typhoon, or trying to navigate completely submerged streets during a heavy monsoon. In those initial, really terrifying 72 hours, you aren't seeing international cargo planes or massive national government deployments first. No way. The first thing you see is the face of your neighbor holding a flashlight. It's the local shopkeeper using their delivery truck as a makeshift ambulance. The reality is, local community members are the true first line of defense. But here's the thing, intent isn't enough. The path forward is all about bridging the gap between having a great civic-minded attitude and actually possessing real technical capability. We've got to make that journey from just being a bystander who wants to help to becoming a vital community asset, rather than a liability when the next storm breaks. So, to get us there, we're going to break this massive, high-stakes topic into 4 clear steps. First, local government requirements. Next, the Essential Responder Toolkit. Then, building an effective training program. And finally, personal preparation and readiness. All right, step 1, local government requirements. Let's navigate a little bit of bureaucracy, shall we? You know, saving lives isn't just a moral calling. In many places, like the Philippines, for example, it's actually a highly structured legal mandate under Republic Act No. 10121. The state is legally required to bring in individual volunteers to help out government resources. But to actually jump in, you kind of need to understand the alphabet soup of the bureaucracy. Your journey is going to start at the LDRRMO. That's the Local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. Every local area has to have one. Basically, think of it as the brain of the local response that sets the overall direction. Then, down at the grassroots level, we have the BDRRMC. This is the executive arm right in your immediate neighborhood, or barangay, making sure your local voice actually gets represented in the planning. So, how do you formally enlist? To become an accredited community disaster volunteer, you literally just need to head over to your LDRMO with a few things. It's a pretty straightforward checklist. You're going to need a government-issued ID, any applicable National Service Training Program certification, a medical certificate to prove you're actually fit for field duty, documentation of any special skills, things like first aid, electrical work, engineering, and finally, your enlistment form outlining your availability. Doing this gets you off the sidelines and officially into the national database. Now, you might be thinking, why bother with all this paperwork? Well, formal accreditation completely changes your legal standing. Your intent is completely altruistic, sure, but knowing your fundamental rights out in the field is absolutely crucial for your own safety and your effectiveness. By getting accredited, you gain some really powerful legal protections. If you get injured while doing authorized activities, you're entitled to compensatory benefits and individual personnel accident insurance. It's a legal right, not just a courtesy. But we also have to look at the flip side, the liabilities. This is a very high-stakes environment. If there's dereliction of duties, or if someone diverts relief goods or tampers with tools, the penalties are severe. We're talking fines up to 500,000 pesos, actual imprisonment, or the confiscation of your equipment. So it's serious business. Moving right along to Chapter 2, the Essential Responder Toolkit, Knowledge and Skills. Okay, knowledge is absolutely the first gear of response. To be effective in the field, you've got to go way beyond basic common sense. It really breaks down into 2 distinct skill sets. On one side, you have your technical skills. These are the physical interventions, bleeding control, CPR, the stuff that literally physically saves a life. On the other side, though, we have non-technical skills. This means leadership, teamwork, stress management. And honestly, these are just as vital because they are what allow you to coordinate with others and keep your mental resilience when things get incredibly chaotic and unpredictable. Let's dig into that technical toolkit a bit with these until help arrives protocols. When the adrenaline hits and you're under stress, your fine motor skills are going to degrade rapidly. Only the stuff you've trained for deeply will actually stick. You absolutely must know airway management, like a proper head tilt/chin lift. For severe bleeding, just pressing on it often won't cut it. You have to know how to apply a tourniquet high and tight and how to actually pack deep wounds. You've got to be proficient in CPR and using an AED. And don't forget the environment. You need to know the subtle shift from just shivering to dangerous lethargy and hypothermia, or notice when someone suddenly stops sweating due to heat stroke. And hey, this isn't just me talking theory here. If we look at real-world data from the brave responders deployed during the 2023 earthquake in Turkey and Syria, their feedback is incredibly telling. What did they value the absolute most out there? Teamwork was at the top at 59%, right alongside technical knowledge at 48%. But here's the crazy part, the massive gap. 53% of those responders reported that mental preparedness was shockingly lacking. So non-technical skills and mental resilience are in massive demand in these real crises, but we just don't train for them enough. Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, Building an Effective Training Program. Here is the blueprint. So how do we actually lock these skills in so we're ready both mentally and physically? Well, we can look to the American Red Cross's 3-phase disaster cycle services. As a volunteer, your role actually evolves. It starts with prepare. This is the stuff we do on blue sky days, like testing smoke alarms or educating the youth. Then comes respond. That's when a dark sky tragedy hits and you're delivering immediate aid like food and medical supplies just to normalize conditions. And finally, recover, helping the community build back even stronger. A truly proper training program is going to align with all 3 of these phases. Now listen, effective training simply cannot be a bunch of disconnected, boring lectures. It's got to be built on adult learning principles. It needs to be self-directed and tied to real, tangible outcomes. You've got to set SMART goals. Don't just tell someone to learn the radio. Mandate that they must transmit a standard report in exactly 45 seconds while dealing with simulated background noise. To really bridge the gap between the classroom and the field, you need realistic, combat-ready simulations. Get this, some reserve trainings even use airsoft equipment during search and rescue drills. It safely introduces the stress and weight of a real tactical situation. And of course, you've got to use repetition to deeply wire this critical info into your brain. So what can you literally do today to take action? Engage with opportunities right in your local area. Organizations like the Red Cross have some amazingly diverse programs. You could join a disaster action team and be one of the very first to respond to local emergencies like house fires. You could become a pillowcase project presenter and teach kids how to prepare. Or you could take shelter fundamentals training to learn exactly how to open and run a safe haven during a crisis. The pathways are totally there waiting for you. And that brings us to our final section, number 4, personal preparation and readiness. Okay, before you run out the door right now to sign up, I need to share a really hard truth with you. You absolutely cannot be a savior if you yourself are a liability. Personal readiness is the absolute bedrock of being a volunteer. And the biggest trap people fall into here is confusing time management with energy management. Sure, technically, you might have an hour available at 8 p.m. to study protocols or pack your gear. But if you're completely exhausted after a long day of work, you're missing the energy, the motivation, and the self-control to actually do it. Trying to study when you're drained is highly ineffective. You've got to manage your energy, not just your schedule. So let's talk about some real science-backed productivity hacks to keep you operationally ready without totally burning out. First up, identify your peak energy hours. Whenever you feel most alert, schedule short, intense 90-minute study bursts right then. Next, you've got to combat Parkinson's law. That's the rule that says work expands to fill the time you give it. Please don't give yourself all weekend to pack a go bag. Set a strict 30-minute timer and just knock it out. Third, use dopamine resets. If you find yourself doom scrolling or stuck in procrastination, do a hard physical task. Bang out some push-ups or take a quick cold shower. It triggers a dopamine spike and completely resets your focus. Finally, balance your input. Rotate between highly active learning and just passive reading to keep your brain fresh. All right, so here is the absolute biggest takeaway from this explainer. Do not wait for the storm to act. The quality of a community's response when things go horribly wrong depends entirely on the preparation built right now, today. So I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on. Are you going to wait for the storm? Or will you take immediate action and build resilience right now, during the blue skies? Reach out to your local disaster office or the Red Cross today. Seriously, there is a place for you on the front line. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.
Did you learn something new and exciting about volunteering for disaster response? Share it here. I want to know about it too.
This video was researched with Perplexity, processed with Notebook LM, refined with Google Workspace, Gemini, and Copilot, and finalized with DaVinci Resolve and Canva.